Okay, welcome everyone to session 2 of our reboot. And I'm so excited to be here this evening, and I'm going to share what the evening will look like, and then we'll go from there. First of all, I want to give you all a reminder to check out the home base page if you haven't. I put the link in the chat box so you could be reminded. There's all sorts of really wonderful tools in there, aside from the guide. And okay, so we're talking about tools to navigate cleansing in the body and emotions tonight. And Rita Rivera-Fox is joining me here, and welcome, Rita. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Gracie. It's a pleasure.
Good. And so first, though, I want to talk about cleansing reactions in the body, and then I will segue into Rita's portion. But before we're going to do that, and we're going to leave questions and answers for, a Q&A towards the end, as well as any sharing. I'm so excited that you're all here. I want to hear from all of you, but we are limited in time, so I wanted to be efficient with it and just dive right in, and we'll go from there. So, all right, let's start with this physical aspect of cleansing reactions. As you're now coming into week 2, and even through week 1, things start to show up. Maybe you've noticed, maybe you haven't noticed, maybe, sometimes I've done a cleanse and I don't feel any cleansing reactions. Interestingly, this time I am. And it was very brief, but it did go through. I had a headache for a couple of days. I never get headaches. So I found that really fascinating for me. But you each have whatever you have that's showing up for you. So there's a whole document that is in the guide that perhaps you've looked at, about cleansing reactions. So I wasn't going to go into all of those details because it is in there, but cleansing reactions show up in different ways. As I said, it could be a headache. You could get nausea. You could get constipation. You can get diarrhea. You could feel exhausted, really feeling drained because whatever you are taking out, like let's say if you're taking out caffeine or sugar, which are 2 big ones, alcohol, another really big one, your body starts to cleanse, right, and detoxify, and those different ways of detoxifying is part of a healing process. There's nothing wrong with it. When I had a headache, it's not like, oh, I have to take a pill because I have this headache. I don't want to do that. What I want to do is give my body a gentle support to help it move through me. So that's why I listed some of the things in that document, like having teas, like peppermint tea is a really nice one in a detox. Dandelion is a really nice one. And there are lots of different herbs that I talk about in the guide. The other thing that I want to just mention about this has to do with, in a detox, it's also like an unwinding process, or another term that's thrown out there is retracing. So when you're detoxing, I think of it like as a body worker. When I used to unwind tissue, like connective tissue, the fascia, how you go in and there's a trigger point and you're pressing on it and there's a release, and all of a sudden it feels like it's just unwinding. So that's how I feel it physically. But in terms of a detox, what could show up in that process of unwinding are different symptoms that you have exhibited in the past when you were sick, when you've been, um, it could be like, let me think of a good one for you. Well, there's one that has been in my consciousness, is hemorrhoids. So a hemorrhoid, which is, from pressure, could be a, um, a retracing. That's one example. Or it could be pain in your body. um, all of a sudden, you're taking something out and you have some sort of symptom. It could be like, I don't know, a shoulder pain, something that had been there before when you had a trauma in your system. There's so many ways, so many things that happen when you shift the chemistry in your body and the physiology in your body. And that's what we're doing. We're shifting things up. We're turning things upside down. We're pulling away addictions. We're pulling away things that we could be, and what Rita will talk more about, the emotional component that comes into it, but the physical symptoms can retrace and show up again. Let's say you broke your leg and in the middle of it, there was trauma and stress in the body and you were eating or you were doing something with also your gut, your digestion. We're connected, a whole kit and caboodle. It's all one unit. And everything will affect us. Everything will affect us. And when you're detoxifying, you're, it's like if it was all wound up and all of a sudden you start letting it go, everything unravels. And that's why I like doing it gently, though. I don't want everything to happen and show up at once. And fortunately, this body of ours takes care of us in that way. And it will send out different endorphins to slow things down or have us in some ways just relax more or not feel something. It's defense mechanisms that show up in the body. Your body will take care of you. It really does. It's an incredible, incredible, I don't want to call it machine, but life force. Just amazing how it will do it, whether we're aware of it or not. So that being said, I do want you to really take a look in the guide and check out, if you haven't already, the document on cleansing reactions. There's lots of great information. That's where I do speak about Heron's law of cure, which is this unwinding process. So let's see, if you do have questions, just like take a note, write it down so you remember it, because I don't want to not get those questions. I just want us to be able to cover all kinds of things in this evening. I'm just looking at a document really quick because I was reminded another reaction that can show up is rashes. Rashes is a really common thing that hives that could show up. Different skin issues, your breath, you could go through a ketosis, and your bodily fluids, your body different odors can come through because you're excreting toxins. So that's what's happening there. Okay, so that's the piece about retracing I wanted to say. And let's see, I think I think that's all I really want to share about regarding the physical. And I would like to just take a moment here to transition to Rita, who she's going to be talking more about the emotional piece, the emotional component, and whatever else shows up there. Um, so thank you. Thank you for being here, and I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. My sweet friend. Hello, everyone. Let's see. Oh, yes, that was Carol and Leslie. I said hi to Surya. Good. So yes, I'm having a cleansing reaction today myself, and I'm tired, and I'm having a weird metallic taste in my mouth, and I'm not finding food very gratifying or tasty. I just kind of felt at odds with what's going on, but
The major distraction. I mean, the most adorable distraction.
That face. Oh, that face. Hey, booba. Hi, little boo-boo. She's a cutie pie. As I was saying in such an adult tone before I relapsed into child babble, and so I'm spacey. I'm very spacey. I really wanted to take a nap this afternoon, and I had clients. I've cleansed often, and so I tried to allow my schedule some flexibility. I recognize these effects. I try not to tell very many stories about them. I try to really just keep with the practical aspect of unwinding, clearing, cleaning, and recognizing that it's a process. However, Grace said something really important about what the physical aspect of what could be happening in terms of revealing underlying patterns in uncomfortable bodily sensations. And so I just want to kind of hop on that, because the emotional reactions that we could be having at this time and during the cleanse mirror that very same movement, in that we often use our patterns and our habits, our eating patterns, our eating habits, our schedules, our relationships, keeping busy, to not have our full attention on emotional reactions. And so by eliminating things, we're eliminating substances that provided a bit of a deterrent to feeling. If we're eating a lot of food, if we're involved in our caffeine or our alcohol, they can serve to keep emotions at bay, not perhaps intentionally, but you can see already in cleansing that there's a big aspect of the psyche, the subconscious, that comes to bear when we remove our habitual foods, habits, patterns, even our habitual thinking. So I think the thing that I most want to bring, I want to keep it super simple, first of all, because my mind is operating in a very disconnected way right now, just because I didn't have my coffee today. I didn't have my 3 o'clock blue corn chip salsa snack. And so I'm feeling a little wonky, but I know that I'm not alone in that. I told a friend of mine, a client of mine who isn't able to be on the call tonight, she's doing the cleanse. I told her that what I look for, this is what I do. It usually happens. Sometimes it can happen in the middle of week 2. by the beginning of week 3, what I look for is the first morning that I wake up clear-headed and that I don't reach for caffeine. It's just like, there's just like this clearing, things drop away, the fuzziness, the kind of grittiness, the the muddiness drops away. So that's why I love to cleanse, is that at some point there's a clarity and there's a witnessing of my life without the crutches, right? There's a witnessing of my life and engaging with my life with my own power and my own alignment, rather than all of these habits that get formed that create crutches. First of all, you may already notice that it's the mind, it's the mind that thinks it needs things. Really, it's more of a thought about what foods, what patterns we need, rather than it is an actual bodily need or desire. That comes in. But what I'm addressing now is what you get to witness when you slow things down. Cleanse automatically slows things down. You get to witness your mind talking to you about what you need. And if you stop long enough, and I'm going to share with you my favorite way, my most powerful and effective way of putting the pause in that mindset inner dialogue that tells us we need these things, bringing it to the feeling body, really checking in with the sensate felt sense in the body. So that's my primary work. I work as a mentor and a coach, and I help people become embodied. That's really the simplest way. And there's, of course, many aspects that keep us out of our bodies. There's many emotional patterns and habits that keep us either really mentally active or really energetically living someplace outside of our body. So what I find, first of all, that I wanted to share with you is to recognize the difference between what you think you need as opposed to what the body actually needs. And they could be two different things. The other thing I want to point out in this cleansing process is that as we're stripping away, as we're unwinding, there are going to be layers of feelings and emotional reactions that harken back to a time when you felt more helpless, less able to choose, perhaps. And so what begins to happen with our feeling body is we react, we get triggered when, have you noticed, have you gotten triggered when you chose not to have your caffeine, or you chose not to have uh, uh, gluten or something that was, very much a familiar pattern? We want to pay really close attention to our emotional reactions, because it isn't just an emotional reaction. It's not just happening in the feeling body. The emotional reaction is caused most often by the thought that preceded it. And so when you're having an emotional reaction, it's usually uncomfortable. And we've gotten really good at saying, I don't like the way this discomfort feels. I'm going to try to reason or fix this with my mind. I'm going to think my way through this. A lot of the work I do with my clients is learning to trust the felt sense, learning to trust the messages that come from our feeling senses, taking the time to have a relationship of trust, building this relationship of trust between the body and the mind, and recognizing that the body has incredible wisdom. And so removing a lot of these crutches that we've come to rely on can reveal that wisdom. So back to emotional reaction. That's when you want to have a really powerful tool so you can put a pause on your emotional reaction. Your emotional reaction is usually stimulated by your nervous system. And if we don't really have it, if we haven't been tracking our nervous system for a while, we're just kind of going to believe what our mind says when our nervous system gets triggered. A lot of times, if there's issues of safety, like food can help us feel safe. Foods can help when you're feeling emotionally wobbly. Reaching for your favorite treat can, as we were talking today, my client and I were catching up about our cleanse. He says, yeah, I feel really good for about 5 minutes, because I reached for that thing. So my emotions were smoothed for a few minutes, but then we're back to that kind of unsteady, that uncomfortable feeling. So a basic here is that our mind tells us, you don't want to feel this way, so let's do something about it. What we're doing here in a possible rewire is recognizing that that we have the ability to meet our uncomfortable emotions rather than overriding them with our thinking, rather than overriding them with our doing. I call this a choice point. And the beautiful thing about becoming more mindful of what we eat is it raises our whole consciousness. It doesn't just make us eat better food. Our whole mental aspect up levels. And so with that, we're also inviting our emotional reactions that maybe had kind of drained us or left us feeling really bad about ourselves. We're inviting our awareness to come into a more gentle and kind and present interaction with uncomfortable emotion. Whether you're cleansing or not, we all experience uncomfortable emotion. So the recognition here is how to befriend these things that go on in the body without necessarily believing the story about these uncomfortable emotions. The best way to put a pause on an emotional reaction is to have at hand a very simple breath practice. Breath is the most powerful tool to switch us from a familiar patterned reaction in our mind. With the breath, we put a pause that says, do I have another choice? Do I have another way to look at? Do I have another way to feel about what I'm going through right now? Instead of this automatic triggered nervous system input. I'm not going to say more about that right now, but if that isn't clear, you can certainly ask that in the questions when we do the Q&A, because there is a lot about the parasympathetic and the sympathetic that goes on in the nervous system that is related to breaking habits. We just basically, when we are in our sympathetic nervous system, when we're moving forward from there, we're moving from habit and pattern, and we'd say programming. So by its nature, the cleanse has the ability to pop us over into the parasympathetic, where we have much more access to not our fight, flight, and freeze, amygdala-based brain reactions, but moving our, to another part of our brain that actually allows us to activate choice. It's called the frontal lobes. So there's all these little minuscule, subtle undercurrents happening to something as simple as eliminating coffee, caffeine, and these things that we rely on daily. So I want to just share the tool with you, and then perhaps I can say more about how to apply it. So the thing with an emotional reaction is very often our breath becomes shallow. In an emotional reaction, particularly if Grace and I were talking the other day about when I get hungry, when I have like an empty belly and I get hunger pains or those growls, I watch my nervous system ratchet up. It's like there's it feels really old, some old response to grab food. And what I've been doing during this cleanse more is recognizing that that is a very old sympathetic message in my system. And when I reach for food unconsciously, that's just re-empowering the pattern. If I bring myself to a few mindful breaths, I can make a different choice. Maybe not entirely. For example, the other day, I chose to eat 5 blue corn chips instead of, maybe 10 or 12. While I was eating them, I was very mindful. I'm eating these. This is my patterned food. But when I finish these, I'm going to go take a bike ride. And that kind of switched it up. I don't know if I've had blue corn chips in like 6 days or something. But it's just that kind of recognition that I'm feeling this thing in my body. It's speaking to me. I want to respond mindfully and gently. And to me, that just worked to say, okay, you can have some of this, and then we're going for a ride. So the breath that I employ, that I'm going to ask you to learn with me tonight. I just want to add, Grace already taught you the 4-7-8 breath, and that is a very powerful breath that I work with my clients. We talked about this as well, because Grace mentioned that she did 10 and she felt fantastic. The doctor that developed it suggests not to do more than 4 or 5 until you really develop a sense of it. This woman really lives in her body. She can, probably stretch it out like that. But if you've tried the 4-7-8 breath and it either hasn't worked for you or you've been put off by it, I had a client actually tell me the other day that her heartbeat increased. Her heart rate increased with the 4-7-8 breath. So we did a workaround. So be gentle with that breath. A cycle of 4, a couple times a day might be enough for you. It's really good when you're triggered. It's really good when you realize that your nervous system is really wonky and you want to come back to center. All right, so what I want to share with you is something called 10 mindful breaths. It couldn't be simpler. And what we're going to do first is we're going to do 5, and I'll count you through them. I have found that sometimes just 5 kind of reset me. I have found sometimes that I get to 10 and I want to do 20. But the thing with the breath, the mindful breath, is that you are able to track a complete inhale. You witness it turn into an exhale. You witness the exhale turn into an inhale. And sometimes 4 or 5 of those are complete, as I said. If you're trying to do 10 and at 5 or 6 you lose focus or you start thinking about something, you're still breathing, but you lost the ability to track each breath, then you go back and start again. All right, so I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. First, we practice it with eyes closed, and then we practice it with eyes open, because this breath is what you can do while you're driving, while you're cooking, cleaning up, taking a shower. I've even employed it while having a conversation. So eyes closed, ideally feet on the ground. Ideally back straight, not rigid, just a comfortable seated position. All right, I'm going to count now, breathing in 1, breathing out 1. These will be slower breaths. Breath 2. Breathing in, breathing out. 3. Out. 4. Really feel the body move with the in-breath. Filling up, feel the body contract with the out-breath. 6. Feel the movement. Out-breath. Breath 7. In. Out. 8. Out. Feel the rhythm now. By now, you should be feeling the rhythm on breath 9. And go ahead and open your eyes. Look at something ahead. Focusing, and 10. Now normalize your breath. But ideally, your breath will feel a little different. It'll feel slower. And most of all, what will have happened is you will be able to feel your breath. It seems like almost too simple, almost too subtle and easy. But when you feel breath moving in and out of your body, it allows you to be really present for an emotional reaction. Remember, emotional reactions usually shut down the breath. And there's usually some kind of fearful, fear-centered, fear-based thought that accompanies an emotional reaction. Most of the time, we don't even hear the thought because we're already shutting down. I'm hoping that you're all able to recount times when the shutdown happens. And so if we have a practice throughout the day of just a few breaths, you can do 5 mindful breaths 3 times a day. And I'll tell you my latest one. I'm going to share my latest breath technique with you. Every time I take a drink of liquid, I take 4 mindful breaths, either before I drink it or after I drink it. I've got most of my clients doing this now as well. You want to work up to 5 or 6, you can do that as well. But on a cleanse, when you're drinking so much liquid, isn't that an incredible practice to really just to tune you to the place in your own system? Imagine this. There's a setting, there's a barometer, there's a system central that we can go to within our own bodies to deactivate these emotional reactions that have derailed us in the past. And it's as simple as knowing where your breath comes from. It's as simple as being able to track your breath and being able to have a relationship with it. Our emotional body is simply messaging us through energy. Most of the time, after I've been speaking to someone for a while, I drop the word emotion completely so that all we're talking about is sensation. The emotions that we shut down behind are the emotions that create uncomfortable sensation. I ask you to think about your emotions as energy in motion. There's simply energy trying to move through the body. How do we stop that process? Well, we're really adept at thinking. Every time we bring thinking into, or fixing into, or managing or controlling emotion, like to me, the most unnatural thing is to think about controlling emotions. What is much more natural and healing is being able to meet emotion where it's happening, meet energy when and where it's happening. And that's why we want a relationship with the breath. Because you can notice, that buildup. And you can become really quite adept at being able to really shift your life. Not only cleansing, but really shift your life into a much, there's more flow states available when you have a connection and a relationship with your breath. So I'm going to ask Grace if there's anything more that you'd like me to point toward or clarify. If there's anything I said that wasn't completely clear.
I'm wondering if it's clear about the relationship with your body and your breath and the energy body. If everyone could give a thumbs up, if that is something that makes sense to you. I got a thumbs up. Sort of.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Let's do it. I'd rather hear if it isn't clear.
Yes. So Leslie, do you want to ask what it is that isn't clear for you?
All very new for me. So I think just hearing this, takes a minute to process and understand how this is affected in a daily life process. But Rita, what you did say very much resonates with me about just checking in with your emotions when you are going through them. I think that's a good, first step for me. But I'm reading it on paper sometimes.
Great. If we're talking first steps, then what you might want to ask yourself to do is to simply stop and recognize what you're feeling, and you can name it, right? And eventually we want to use the mind less to work with our emotions and just really give it to the body. But after a while, I just want you to notice that what's uncomfortable and what's comfortable. When you're happy and relaxed, maybe walking, I want you to notice that with your breath, there's space, like there's movement and there's space in your body because you're at ease and there isn't any stress. Versus when you are stressed, when you're pushed, when you're overwhelmed, you have kids, so just bring observation. Just notice, I have this state available to me. I have this state available to me. And anytime you do, just take a few breaths. If you can't get to 10, if you don't have time to do 10, do 3. Right now, I'm feeling really uncomfortable in my body. I don't want to feel like this. I'm angry at so-and-so. Why didn't you do this? But I'm going to take 3 breaths. Just start there. You don't really have to understand energy in order to observe what feels good, what doesn't feel good, and being able to bring your breath to both. And just because something doesn't feel good, if it's uncomfortable, please understand it's only uncomfortable because of how the mind has named it.
Okay.
Okay, that's further on down the road. But if you, if I get to interact with you in the future, please recognize that uncomfortable emotions aren't to be ignored. They're not, when something's uncomfortable, this new pathway is toward the discomfort. You gave childbirth, right?
I'm
You,
sorry.
you birthed your children, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And so when you were in labor, did you move away from the pain or toward it?
I had two totally separate experiences and did a little bit of both actually with each. So,
Okay. Well, just think of this as whenever uncomfortable emotion arises for everyone, we want to move toward it with our breath rather than finding a distraction or some strategy to move away from it.
okay.
Thank you.
So the other thing I was thinking about as you were talking, and actually it popped in before, you just brought it up again, is about addictions. And I know we're going to talk about cravings and whatnot next session, but there is an overlap here. When you're taking something away and there's that cleansing reaction, what have you been using it for? To not feel, to go away from, to
Right.
eat food, to push it down, or to not eat food, to avoid, being in contact somehow with the body, or for whatever reason, who knows?
Well, they're all masking strategies. They're all numbing or masking or distraction. It's really amazing how connected the nervous system is to addictions in terms of how they relate to one another.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's an entire a piece of knowledge in and of itself. But if you find that in trying to make a better choice around something, a food or a beverage that has been addictive, you want to be super gentle. You want to recognize that there's a part of you that has said, this isn't safe.
Mm-hmm.
I use these things for safety. And if you're going to remove them, I don't feel safe. And that's the great opportunity. That's a new doorway of self-awareness and self-knowing, is how the new strategies or the new ways to bring emotional safety, because that's what that is. It's a lack of emotional safety. And when we're using substances and activities instead of to distract us from our emotions, there's no wonder that we feel emotionally unsafe when we have these emotional reactions, right? So super gentle if you're working with an addiction, recognizing almost like this. The adult self is saying, we are safe. We're safe enough now that instead of that cup of coffee or that glass of wine, I'm going to have a cup of tea with you, because it is really a younger part of self that feels so vulnerable and feels so exposed. So sometimes, we get to talk with ourselves in soothing ways when we're making these kinds of new choices.
Okay. Well, what I would like to do right now is open up the floor screen to everybody to unmute yourselves. And if you have any questions or sharing an experience from anything from a physical cleansing reaction, the topics that Rita has also just addressed, this is our time and opportunity, and I'd love to hear from you all.
Gracie,
Yes.
I just got a message.
Okay. Oh, not that one.
Thank you, Atlas. You agree. I should share this one, right? Good. I want to teach you another really simple breath. They call it the box. I don't like this word. I call it the 4-4-4 breath. It might be a little easier for, it might be a good one for you to use if you are working with some addictions here, removing addictions. And it's going to take me just a few seconds to show you how this one goes.
Okay.
So you breathe in for the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You hold for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You exhale 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you hold the exhale 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do it one more time, slower. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Holding at the bottom 1, 2, 3, 4. Whenever you do breath practice throughout the day, and like I said, if you can do it 2 or 3 times a day, it just takes minutes. Always wait a few moments to notice how you feel. That's also another way that you're connecting with your felt sense. Breath itself connects you to your felt sense, but when you stop and go, oh, wow. And you may notice discomfort. You may notice, oh, my shoulder hurts worse. Most of the time, what I hear as feedback is, I'm calmer. But always in breath practice, the last step is noticing how you feel.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was wonderful.
Yeah, that one is I forget that one because it's so easy. And I employed it for a long time, and it's kind of, I've been pushing it aside. But I really realized with this group, especially, that one in its simplicity might be helpful.
Mhm. Thank you. Okay. Anybody like to share any of their experiences, even from the first week of their cleanse? Questions? Anything for Rita, for what she shared? The floor is really open here. You know everything.
No.
Well,
No,
I can
thank
share.
you. Yeah.
Liz is-
No, Rita, thank you. I don't know really how to do breathing practices, and I think your last example was that's very simple. I get that. I could do that. I think
Okay, great.
it's a good starting point.
Good.
That's great.
Thank you.
Grace, if you wanted to, I have an audio short embodied breath practice on my website. I could send you a link
Great.
that you could share with everyone. And it's maybe 7 minutes. There might be 2 there, one that's a little longer. If you find it helpful, we'll share that link with you. Sarah, what about that 4-4-4 breath felt easier for you? Just how did that feel more accessible to you?
I just think because it's tighter, it's just one cycle through as opposed to, okay, have I done 3, 4? Because
Sure.
my mind wanders, and I think the idea of doing just the 4, times 4 is very, it's straightforward
So
to start.
if you do the 4-4-4 breath 4 times, several times a day,
Okay.
see what you notice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Leslie.
I have to say, in the morning, Rita, I I feel very frustrated. I can't have coffee, and I am so addicted to coffee.
I know.
And, it's an emotional experience for me not to have it, but just to like stop, this week really having any caffeine at all. Today was very difficult, and I was really frustrated with myself and felt very tired. And, I had a hard time getting past that.
I
You know,
know.
it was probably around 11 o'clock before I just let it all go. So
What did you
breathing.
let go? What did you let go of at 11 o'clock?
Oh, I just, I focused on other things. I had, work to do. So I was really just in work and focused on, the projects at hand, which distracted me. I didn't really sit in it like you had said and, figure out why so much. I
Yeah.
just distracted myself, which is pretty much what I do starting at 6 o'clock every morning when I have coffee.
Yeah, aren't we? I was thinking, Grace, you should have a subset. You should have a support group within your clans. The former coffee addicts, because I'm titrating right now. I actually this morning had about a third of a cup. But what just congratulations. I know how difficult that is.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Is there anyone in the course teaching alternate nostril breath?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually did that on the link that I shared, and Marina also
Right.
did it. I
Right.
did Marina's yoga this morning. It was very sweet. And she does an alternate nostril breathing to start.
So if you can bring yourself to that frustration is energy. That's energy, my dear. If you want to know what is energy, frustration is energy trapped in the body. Okay, if we get rid of the word frustration and we just focus on it's a really uncomfortable. Well, describe how does frustration feel?
Tense and tight.
Tight.
Yeah.
Okay, so whenever anything is tight and we're holding, we aren't bringing breath to it. That's the shutdown I was referring to. Shutdown is when we grip. Like if you were to name the sensation, tight, gripping, holding. Yeah. And so why I asked Gracie about the alternate nostril breathing, if you can access that in the course, it looks kind of funny. You might have to go in your closet and do it, or you can go into the bathroom and do it. That immediately breaks that tightness. That tightness goes, ah. And it might just be a tiny little gap, but that's enough of a gap that from there you could do 5 mindful breaths. You could go walk around if you can't, if you're in, I don't know how accessible the outdoors is for you, but just any little momentary, like 2-3 minute break that brings breath into your body starts to undo and unwind that reaction. And good luck with the coffee. I would offer a sub support group here for all of the former caffeine addicts.
Drink Dandy Blend.
Yeah,
Dandy's
Dandy Blend is great.
Dandy Blend lattes.
Okay.
Very good.
Dandy Blend lattes.
We're not doing nut milk this week unless you are.
I'm doing hemp milk.
All right. Well, it's okay. You could do seeds.
Mm-hmm.
Dandy Blend's a great product, though. Highly recommended. And it has dandelion, which is great for your liver.
Mm-hmm.
So it really supports it.
I have something to say.
Yes.
So I have had a very easy time with this. My body was ready for it. So I kind of just clicked right into it. And what I wanted out of it was a lot of focus and listening. internally. And, you know, like you were talking about, Rita, being mindful of what we're eating increases our overall mental awareness. And so something that has been coming up, because I do a lot of inner searching, is like the question, where does your breath come from? Where does your mind come from? Came up. And being a science kind of person, I go right to neurology and psychology and things. But there's still like a burning question. Like where does that come from? And I don't know if it's an appropriate question for this right now, but it has been on my mind, so to speak.
Where the mind comes from, or the content of the mind?
The mind. You know, because it
People have
feels
been
like a
asking that.
personality.
Yeah, well, okay, then you just actually defined it even more narrowly, personality. Okay,
Yeah.
because mind, mind, people have been speculating about, for ages, does it live, there's even the thought that it isn't inside our body, it's not local.
Yeah.
It's a collective. It's Borg, if you know my reference.
Uh-huh.
But then there's personality, and that to me is a little different. That to me, the personality has more to do with the perception, like the filters that we're all perceiving all the time.
Mhm.
And yet, if we were to ask every single person to describe, something I said tonight, something that Grace said tonight, you would each probably see it differently. Our perception is so very unique.
Mhm.
And that to me is more personality, is how perception kind of gets funneled into a series of traits and sort of propensities for interpretation. Personality is just a way we interpret
Sure.
the information, right? And mind, we could say, is the information, and personality is the way that we individually interpret it. But I think what's more important for us here is to recognize that it's all about interpretation. That's what we have choice over.
Yeah.
You're right. We may not have choice. We never understand the mind. Scientists may never really understand it, but what comes from the mind, if that's called information or perception, what we want to be aware of is that we have a neutral observer. Like you said, you do inner searching. You are an observer. You are an awareness. You are a witness. As long as we are able to have a witness mentality or a neutral place that we observe, and we observe our perceptions and we observe our interpretations. And then we get to see, oh, when I interpret that event in this way, it makes me feel like this. And then we get to see all of the choices we've made. And then we get to come to the end and go, is this really how I choose to feel?
Mhm.
Then maybe I need to look back at my interpretation, because we do have a choice about how we interpret life's events.
That's the interesting part right there, is what kind of art do I want to make with my expression? How do I want to express the things that I input, in terms of like my food or the people that I'm around or the activities that I choose to do or the environments I find myself in? How do I want to express that?
For you, it just feels like the question itself is what has the power. The fact that you're asking that question.
Yes.
Mhm.
Just trying to stay with
And
it.
when you ask it, right, it's like we ask those questions often when we're in our contemplative or solo, or alone. To ask those questions when you're interacting, when you're already moving in the world, I think that that's when a powerful question can really become powerful in making new choices. But we never want to disregard the power of a powerful question, and that's what you're doing. And so
Okay.
that might be more important than the answer right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think more than anything, the journey is what I love. And so to be able to share that with people that might be on the same path, so to speak, is
Sounds like you have a whole family of people that do this.
pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it is awesome. It is awesome.
Yeah.
And I
Wonderful.
think I've met everyone except you. So it's really nice to meet you.
Me too.
All your siblings. By everyone, I mean your siblings.
Indeed. Everybody in the world but Surya.
That's right. How does that make you feel?
All right. Anyone else have anything? Carol?
I just wanted to respond to Surya because I loved what he said. And what came up for me was that in one sense, you're asking a whole bunch of serious questions there and looking for answers so that you know how to move forward. But the fact that you're putting your attention on a question rather than automatically
Yeah.
doing something or reacting is the blessing, is the grace. You're not doing something robotically in your art or your thought or your food or your friends, that all those choices you said you were considering. You're what I'm feeling is that your attention is really heightened, and you sense that there's possibilities, so many possibilities there for you that you don't know about yet, not just because of your age, but just because there's so many possibilities out there in the universe. So I think you at the end there you touched on it. You said it's more about the journey than the answers, and so my what I felt like saying to you was, stay in that place, like just stay paying attention and don't know the answers, like Rilke said to the young poet, right? Like you'll just don't, you don't know the answers yet, so
Right.
so why put your attention on them? Put your attention on the curiosity part of it. But thank you for sharing that story. I thought it was beautiful.
Thank you.
But I too, the first week of the cleanse is pretty much how I eat anyway. So it wasn't a challenge, but what was difficult was dropping the coffee in the morning. I only have 1 cup of coffee in the morning, but so that just seemed like unfair. So I dropped the coffee, and I usually have a bottle of beer when I get home from work at night, just a small bottle of beer, and that's kind of the end of my day, and I'll have a glass of beer while I'm cooking dinner or something. So to me it's like, that's a ritual. That's got nothing to do with addiction.
Exactly.
So it wasn't too hard about the sugar or the so this week I have confessions. I did sneak in half a cup of coffee, and I did sneak in a beer, and I really didn't like it. I didn't even finish it. And I was looking for something. I always have a hankering for carbohydrates. I'm not in this cleanse to lose weight at all. So, I like to eat. I feel like I need a lot of food. And so, I feel like I've been kind of skimping on the choices that we've had to eat, even though you've said, like, don't forget your 1,200 calories. I don't even know what 1,200 calories looks like. So anyway, all that is to say is today I'm with, who was the lady who spoke before? Today's the hardest day because we've even got fewer options, and I wasn't allowed to have any carbohydrate for breakfast. And I was like, holy shit, what am I supposed to have for breakfast this morning? I'm like, know what I'm going to have. And so I made a smoothie and it was very unsatisfying. So I ended up being grumpy and I got a headache all day and I'm tired and I just want to go to bed.
Me too.
Yeah. Make sure you're drinking water, like really upping your water intake when you're doing this. Tea. I get it though. So what I tend to want is fats.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, I've noticed that like avocado is so satisfying to me. I love avocados, and you can eat avocados this week. So avocados are it. But yeah, I just want to address that, the 1,200 calories. Surya had brought that up. I posed his question on Facebook and mentioned that my response to that is, if you need more food, eat more food. I want you to take care of yourself and give yourself what your body is asking for, but not your head. That's what Rita was talking about, having to do with what does this body really need right now? And if it needs more, give it more and just eat more vegetables, eat more fruit, eat more. I mean, if you were on an island, you would have incredible, I love this thought, being on a Caribbean island and having all the mangoes and avocados that I want. Just that fresh food and water and liquids and the broths. And you can still have the protein, it's not a totally limited, like you could still have eggs for the next 3 days. You could still have nuts and seeds, as I mentioned in there. So, check it out, flaxseed oil. There are good things you can have. And if you need something more, eat it and see how your body feels. That's the only one that's really going to tell you. Truly. You have the alcohol, you could see what it feels like after not having it. You drink coffee, you see what it feels like after you don't have it.
Yeah, that experience for me is just all about brutal self-honesty and really dropping into my body and saying, do I need this? Does that feel good? For real? Like, really checking that part, and I like that. I like flexing that muscle of not trying to hide behind my own story and just putting it on the table, saying that's actually what it is. I got to actually own that.
Right, I love it. Yeah. I was cold today. It was so cold. I kept drinking hot things all day. And I said, I'm still cold. I'm still cold because I'm not having carbs and not a lot of fat. I'm having, I eat healthy fats. It's not like I'm eating junk, but that is something. But I notice, so I took a hot bath. I said, I've got to get my body warm. I was so cold. It's rainy and kind of cold out there, snowy. So the other thing that I want to share with you is I've always had lemon water. I can't have it on this cleanse. My body does not want lemon water. That's my body. It doesn't mean it's yours, but that's mine. And I have to listen to it. I ended up with like a sore on my tongue. I said, wow, I haven't had one of those in a long time. And again, it's a cleansing reaction, but I also noticed that there's too much acid. It was just too acidic. I can have apple cider vinegar, but I can't have lemon. So I'm just listening to it. If that's what my body says, fine. I don't care what the guide says. if I can't have it, I can't have it. And I want you to listen like that, you know, you're honoring whatever you are needing. This is not meant to hurt you. This is not meant to, you know, be like, as I said, the warrior. This is about being loving and gentle and kind to yourself and listening to what you need. If you need to feed yourself something, then give it to yourself, whatever that is. If it's more rest, if
More
it's
rest.
more air, if it's, you know, slowing down and just honoring it with your breath. Please, please, that's what we're doing here.
Gracie, I have a question about the apple cider vinegar. I've never, I mean, I've heard people doing a lot of apple cider vinegar and lemon or honey. So what's it for and when's the best time to take it?
So apple cider vinegar helps with metabolism, blood sugar. It's best before a meal.
Okay.
And truth be told, I have a sweet tooth. That's my thing. I love sweets.
Well, nobody can understand that. I'm sorry. You're alone in that.
And I can't have sugar. My body, you know, but what I have had is like a little bit of maple syrup
Mhm.
or honey.
Yeah.
I don't eat white sugar. I don't eat junk, even regularly. I never eat it. But what I am doing is using stevia because it helps my sweet tooth.
Yeah, it does.
So in the apple cider vinegar, I'll put a little bit of stevia.
Oh, okay, that's great. I've been just like, you know, I put a little bit of water and just gulp it down, right? And then it's kind of burny. And it's like, I hope this is doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Right.
I've had it in the past with warm water, lemon and honey.
So I would dilute it in water. You know, I've also had Ethan shots. I've had a few of those bottles that have been sitting here for months. I said, oh, I should drink some of it now. So and they're sweet though. They're really sweet. I don't think his are diluted a whole lot, but you can dilute it in water. So take like a tablespoon in water, put a little stevia in it if you want. And, you know, then just have that.
All right. So before meals, just once a day or between?
You can have it a couple of times a day. I
Okay.
even stay in there up to 3 times a
And
day.
does it also help to make the body more alkaline?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
That's what I'm looking for, is
What we're going for.
the shortcut to alkalinity, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Grace.
Yes, you're welcome. Anything else?
Yes, I can share what's been going on for me. I was doing yoga today and I had to kind of remind myself that I was even on a cleanse. I was like, why am I like feeling just kind of tired? And, you know, my legs have been feeling like fatigued. I actually had this thing moving through, I feel like, in my sacrum, and like all down my legs have really been bothering me. And I'd been doing yoga to try and stretch them out. And I realized that like, I'm a coffee drinker and I haven't been drinking it for like the last 5 days, I think. And I've had a little green tea, which feels nice, but I have like a lot of energy anyways. So I'm like, whoa, okay. Like I don't really need coffee, and kind of made that connection. Oh, it's kind of like in my mind of, oh, I think I need this thing to be able to live my life. But I realized that I use coffee and alcohol when mostly like when I noticed I use it when my body's like hurting. And I was like, wow, have I been kind of like maybe suppressing this, whatever's going on and moving through my body with like substance, and just being like, okay, well, I have all these things I have to do. I'm going to have like 2 cups of coffee and like be on my way. And like my body is out the window and like I don't really feel it as much anymore. So yeah, that was just a nice little revelation today for me.
Awesome. That's
Yeah.
great. Thank
Yeah,
you for sharing that.
Totally.
Yeah. So many things show up.
Mhm.
Okay, anyone else before we wrap up for the evening?
I'm have I could share a little bit.
Okay.
Hi. It's very interesting to be on a cleanse and be breastfeeding and be a mom, and because the whole first week, everything that I was eating was the same thing I've been eating for 9 months, basically, or 8 months. And I have added in the lemon water in the mornings, and I noticed that the cleanse for me has been so much more focused on my mind and my emotional body. So I really appreciated you, Rita, and
Oh, I
all
have
that you
something special for you, Galadriel.
Oh
I have,
yes.
in talking about powerful questions
Mm.
with your brother, here's one for you. So we all are asking ourselves the question of what am I eating, right?
Mhm.
In terms of food. We also maybe all want to ask ourselves, what am I eating in terms of the emotions I'm creating?
Mhm.
Because it is the same. It's a energetic food as opposed to a, a biological food, but that one will bring some awareness to our cleanse process as well. I had wanted to say that earlier, and I was going to dismiss it, but then when you started speaking, I thought, that would be a good one for you to ask throughout the day.
Yeah.
It's a very good question, and the one that I have been navigating, which is very, I feel like I'm very in alignment with doing a cleanse, with springtime, with like coming out of the hibernation, and as Atlas gets like more aware and alert, and I feel my body wanting to do more, but the emotion is anger, which is very synonymous with like the cleansing, in Chinese medicine, like springtime. And when my wood element is out of balance, there's a lot of anger. And I have needed to employ your breathing, the 4-7-8, several times today. And also have been up against relationships that require me to put my righteousness and my ego aside, and come back to my breath and my center, because it's like ask and I shall receive, and I see that question is very valid, and I like that to integrate it into when I'm feeling triggered, like, oh, what emotion am I eating? Yeah.
Just eating it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I really appreciate that. And I see that also, I have a physical condition that I've been battling with hemorrhoids since labor. And I know that they're also associated with anger on the liver. So I've also felt them inflame since being on this cleanse. And so I'm upping my water and also looking at my anger.
It's up to you, my dear.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll share some more with you on a separate call.
Sidebar.
Great.
All right. Anybody else? I think everybody has, everyone has spoken.
Nice.
Wonderful. This has been a really wonderful evening. I just want to remind you, I put in the chat box again, the home page in case you don't have the link. So you can copy and paste it And we're always adding things to the page, so please keep checking there. And thank you so much, Rita, for coming,
Oh, you're welcome,
joining us
Grace.
this evening.
I love the
Thank you,
engagement.
Rita.
I loved reading all of seeing the faces that I'm enduring this challenging time with.
Mm.
Yes, you're all, and remember, Facebook is there. You can go on our Facebook page anytime. I've been posting all kinds of things there too. Okay, so thank you again. I'm going to stop this recording here. So I want to just stay tuned for this week. All kinds of things could show up for you. Week 2, check out all the information, and I'm excited to see you guys all next Monday evening for the next session, which is going to be very juicy as well. So thank you and have a great evening.
You too. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye, Gracie. Thank you.
Thanks,
Take
Rita.
care.
I love you.